Namaste, Dandava Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 21, Text 34. Eshavihane guna gunodvara pratag vidhadravya guna kriyoktibi sampadhyate ritasya linganamabir vishudha vigyan ghana svarupata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and not contaminated by this material world. But although he is concentrated spirit soul, without material variety, for the benefit of the conditioned soul, he nevertheless accepts different types of sacrifice performed with various material elements. Rituals and mantras and offered to the demigods under different names according to the interests of the purposes of the performers. Purport. For material prosperity, there are recommendations in the Vedas for various types of yajna or sacrifice. In the Bhagavad Gita 3.10, it is confirmed that Lord Brahma created all living entities, including human beings and demigods, and advised them to perform yajna according to their material desires. Saha yajna prajashristva. These performances are called yajnas because their ultimate goal is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The purpose of performing yajnas is to get material benefit, but because the aim is to simultaneously satisfy the Supreme Lord, such yajnas have been recommended in the Vedas. Such performances are of course known as karmakand, or material activities. And all material activities are certainly contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Generally, the karmakand ritualistic ceremonies are performed in the mode of passion, yet the conditioned souls, both human beings and demigods, are obliged to perform these yajnas because without them, one cannot be happy at all. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that these karmakand ritualistic ceremonies, although contaminated, contain touches of devotional service, because whether there is a performance of any yajna, Lord Vishnu is given central position. This is very important because even a little endeavor to please Lord Vishnu is bhakti and is of a great value. A tinge of bhakti purifies the material nature of the performers, which by devotional service gradually come to the transcendental position. Therefore, although such yajnas are superficially material activities, the results are transcendental. Such yajnas as Surya Yajna, Indra Yajna, and Chandra Yajna are performed in the names of the demigods. But these demigods are the bodily parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods cannot accept any sacrificial offerings for themselves, but they can accept them for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a departmental tax collector of a government cannot collect taxes for his personal account, but can realize them for the government. Any yajna performed with this complete knowledge and understanding is described in Bhagavad Gita as brahmarpanam, or a sacrifice offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since no one but the Supreme Lord can enjoy the results of sacrifice, the Lord says that he is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshvaram. Sacrifices should be performed with this view in mind. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.24, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is the same spiritual nature. The performer of the sacrifices must always keep in view that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas are meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishnur Aradhyate Panta, Vishnu Purana 3.8.9. Anything material or spiritual done for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord is understood to be an actual yajna, and by performing such yajnas one gets liberation from material bondage. The direct method of getting liberation from material bondage is devotional service, comprising the 9 following methods. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. Bhagavatam 7.5.23. This 9-fold process is described in this verse as Vishuddha Vijnana, or satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly by transcendental knowledge concentrated on the form of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This is the best method for satisfying the Supreme Lord. One who cannot take this direct process, however, should take the indirect process of performing yajnas for the satisfaction of Vishnu or yajna. Vishnu is therefore called Yagyapati, Shriyapatim Yagyapatim Jagatpatim. Bhagavatam 2.9.15. The Supreme Personality of Godhead's deep scientific knowledge is concentrated to the supreme point. For example, medical science knows some things superficially, but doctors do not know exactly how things happen in the body. Lord Krishna, however, knows everything in detail. Therefore, his knowledge is Vijnana, because it does not have any defects of the material science. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Vishuddha Vijnana, concentrated transcendental knowledge. Therefore, even though he accepts karma kandiya materialistic yajnas, he always remains in a transcendental position. Therefore, the mention of the Aneka Guna refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's many transcendental qualities, for he is not affected by the material qualities. The different kinds of material paraphernalia or physical elements are also gradually transformed into spiritual understanding, because ultimately there is no difference between the material and spiritual qualities, for everything emanates from the Supreme Spirit. This is realized by a gradual process of realization and purification. One vivid example of this is Dhruva Maharaj, who took to meditation in the forest to achieve material benefit, but ultimately became spiritually advanced and did not want any benediction for material profit. He was simply satisfied with the association of the Supreme Lord. Ashaya means determination. Generally, a conditioned soul has the determination for material profit, but when these desires for material profit are satisfied through the performance of yajna, one gradually achieves the spiritual platform. Then his life becomes perfect. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10 therefore recommends Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udharadi Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Everyone, whether akama, a devotee, sarvakama, a karmi, or mokshakama, a jnani or yogi, is encouraged to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the direct method of devotional service. This way, one can get both material and spiritual profit simultaneously. 35. Pradhan kalashaya dharma sangrahe sarira esha pratipadya chetanam kriya phaladvena vibhor vibhavyate yathanna darushu tad gunatmaka. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-pervading, but he is also manifested in different types of bodies which arise from a combination of material nature, time, desires, and occupational duties. Thus, different types of consciousness develop just as fire, which is always basically the same, blazing in different ways according to the shape and dimension of firewood. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly lives with the individual soul as Paramatma. The individual soul has awareness in accord with his material body, which he attains by virtue of Prakriti, or material nature. The material ingredients are activated by the force of time, and thus the three material modes of nature are manifested. According to his association with the three modes of nature, a living entity develops a particular type of body. In animal life, the material mode of ignorance is so prominent that there is very little chance of realizing Paramatma, who is also present within the heart of an animal. But in the human form of life, because of developed consciousness, Chaitanam, one can be transferred from ignorance and passion to goodness by the results of his activities, Kriya Phalatvena. A human being is therefore advised to associate with spiritually advanced personalities. In the Vedas, the Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12, it gives the direction Tad Vijnanartam Sa Gurum Eva Bigachet. In order to reach the perfection of life or to understand the real constitutional position of the living entity, one must approach the spiritual master, Gurum Eva Bigachet. One must, it is not optional. It is imperative that one approach the spiritual master, for by such association one proportionally develops his consciousness towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The highest perfection of such consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. According to the body given by Prakriti or nature, one's consciousness is present. According to the development of consciousness, one's activities are performed, and according to the purity of such activities, one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is present in everyone's heart. The example given here is very appropriate. Fire is always the same, but according to the size of the fuel or burning wood, the fire appears to be straight, curved, small, big, etc. According to the development of consciousness, God realization is present. In the human form of life, it is recommended, therefore, that one undergo the different types of penances and austerities described in Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Like a staircase, yoga has different steps for reaching the topmost floor, and according to one's position upon the staircase, he is understood to be situated in Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Of course, Bhakti Yoga is the topmost step on the staircase of realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, according to one's development in consciousness, one realizes his spiritual identity, and thus when one's existential position is purified fully, he becomes situated in the Brahmanda, which is ultimately unlimited. Therefore, the Sankirtan movement contributed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Chaitanya, is the direct and easiest process for coming to the purest form of consciousness, Krishna consciousness, the platform on which the Supreme Personality is fully realized. Directions for performing different types of yajnas are specifically arranged for the highest realization of the Supreme Lord, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is realized according to the proportion of one's surrender. Yeyatamam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyam. Bhagavad Gita 4.11. Full surrender, however, occurs when a man is perfectly in knowledge. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapadyante. Bhagavad Gita 7.19. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 36 on Wednesday. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhara Goswami Mahārāja ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Sundar Govindadev Goswami Mahārāja ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Goswami Mahārāja ki Jai.
Jai.
And Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Niskam Shanta Mahārāja ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktivedanta Vrinda ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai, Nrsimhapali Dham ki Jai, Mayapur Dham ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki Jai, Ganga Mai, Yamuna Mai ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Govardhan Dham ki Jai, Shyam Kund Radha Kund ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki Jai, Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai, Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari 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 Hari
Hari Bol.
Ashimati Uma Devi Dasi ki Jai.
Jai Gurudev. Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu ji ki jai.
Jai
Dandavad
Gurudev.
Dandavad.
Dandavad Stiri. Hari Bol.